All right, so today we're diving into a topic that's, it's pretty important.
Yep.
Travel accessibility for people with disabilities.
Okay.
And we've got this really interesting article from National Geographic Traveler UK. It's called Travel for People with Disabilities, an Opportunity for Change.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, and it's just packed with insights. Like, we could talk about this for hours.
Yeah.
So are you ready to kind of unpack all this?
Absolutely. I think it's a topic that deserves, way more attention, a lot more attention than it gets.
For sure.
Yeah.
And, the article just jumps right to the heart of the matter.
Okay.
It quotes TV presenter Sophie Morgan, and she says, "Every disabled person I know has a travel horror story."
Wow.
That's a pretty strong statement.
It is. It is. What are your thoughts on that?
It kind of makes you think, like, these aren't just like one-off things.
Right.
It's like a pattern in the travel industry.
Yeah.
It's like a systemic thing.
Yeah. You make you wonder, why are these horror stories so common?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, instead of asking, like, will something go wrong?
Right.
It's more like, when will it happen?
Exactly.
And, the article doesn't shy away from sharing some of these experiences.
Oh, okay.
You hear about, like, lost wheelchairs, damaged wheelchairs, staff that are totally not ready to help passengers with disabilities.
Yeah.
And even cases where, like, people are forced to crawl to the toilet.
Oh, my goodness.
It's just crazy.
Yeah. The case of BBC correspondent Frank Gardner.
Oh, yeah.
He had to crawl to the toilet on a LOT Polish Airlines flight because they didn't have an aisle chair.
Oh, that's awful.
They didn't have one available.
It's hard to believe that could still happen.
It's crazy.
In this day and age.
Yeah.
Right.
It really highlights, the lack of very basic accommodations.
Yeah.
The indignity that so many, disabled travelers face. What's even more concerning is that the airline tried to justify the situation.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They claimed that aisle chairs weren't available on short-haul flights.
What?
Because of limited space.
So basically they're saying, like, the comfort and dignity of a disabled passenger is less important than, like, maximizing their space.
It's pretty bad.
That's appalling.
Yeah. And thankfully, after, Gardner went public with his experience, the airline had to kind of reevaluate their policy.
Oh, okay.
They had to make changes.
It seems like it took, like, public pressure to make that change.
For sure. For sure. Public pressure was a huge catalyst.
It's kind of sad that it takes that.
Absolutely.
Like, it takes somebody being humiliated like that.
It makes you wonder about the industry's commitment to proactive accessibility measures.
Right.
Are they truly prioritizing the needs of all travelers, or are they just reacting to negative publicity?
Yeah, exactly. It shouldn't have to be like, you have to publicly shame them.
Right.
To get them to do the right thing. Exactly.
Exactly. And, it's not just about, being physically uncomfortable. It's like the emotional impact, too.
You're right. Imagine, like, the feeling of being dehumanized.
Yeah.
Having your basic needs just disregarded.
Yeah.
Simply because of a disability. It can be so isolating.
Yeah.
Frustrating.
Yeah.
And damaging to one's sense of dignity and independence.
Right.
And the article, backs this up.
Okay.
With a survey. Out of 500 disabled travelers, half felt discriminated against while flying in the past 5 years.
That's a huge number.
It is.
Half of them.
Yeah.
It really shows that this is a widespread problem.
It's not just a few incidents.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge problem.
Makes you wonder, what could airlines and other travel providers be doing better?
Well, for starters, I think there needs to be a way bigger emphasis on staff training.
Okay.
We've heard so many stories of, staff being ill-equipped.
To handle the needs of disabled passengers, whether it's assisting with boarding or understanding their needs.
That makes sense. Like, proper training could prevent a lot of these situations.
For sure.
But it's not just about, reacting to problems.
Right.
It's about designing travel experiences that are inclusive from the very beginning.
Absolutely.
Right.
And the article highlights some people and organizations that are trying to do this.
Okay.
Sophie Morgan, who we talked about earlier, she's founded an organization called Rights on Flights.
Love the name.
Yeah. It advocates for, rights for disabled passengers.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really nice to see people taking a stand and pushing for change.
It's encouraging.
It is. It is. And it's not just individuals making a difference. The UK government has also stepped in.
Oh, wow.
They've formed the Aviation Accessibility Task and Finish Group
to
tackle these issues head on. And It's not just politicians sitting around. This group has representatives from airlines, airports, and travel associations.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, it signifies like a really collaborative effort to find solutions.
It seems like they're really trying to find some actual solutions. Do they have like a plan of attack?
Well, they're taking a comprehensive approach, looking at everything. Delays in assistance, mishandled wheelchairs, inadequate service, toilet access, lack of clear information.
Wow, so it's like the whole picture.
The whole picture, yeah.
That's great.
It's promising.
But let's be realistic. Are things actually getting better? Or is this all just talk?
Well, there are definitely signs of improvement. The article mentions that for the first time since 2020, no UK airports were rated poor in the Civil Aviation Authority's accessibility report.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that's a positive step.
That's a huge step. It shows that, things are moving in the right direction.
Definitely.
But, 5 airports still require improvement?
Yeah, 5 airports. So there's still work to be done. It's not time to celebrate quite yet.
For sure. And progress in one area, doesn't mean the fight is over.
Mm-hmm.
The article talks about train travel and how inconsistent assistance can be.
Oh.
Even with, apps to help.
Yeah.
It's like playing travel roulette.
Right.
You're hoping that the assistance you need will actually be there.
Yeah, it must be really frustrating and stressful.
So stressful. The article shares the experience of Sarah Ledbetter.
Okay.
She's blind, and she travels with a guide dog.
Okay.
And she talks about the uncertainty and anxiety she faces because the assistance is so inconsistent.
It's tough.
Yeah, and it just shows, the emotional toll
Yeah.
that all these challenges have.
Absolutely.
It's really a reminder that accessibility is not just about, the physical accommodations.
Right.
It's about creating a travel experience that is reliable
Yeah.
and inclusive for everyone.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop with train travel. The article talks about challenges faced by, guide dog users.
Okay.
They mention Andrew Lamb. He's the honorary president of the European Guide Dog Federation.
Okay.
And he was wrongly denied boarding because of his guide dog.
Seriously. That's unbelievable. You'd think airlines would have, clear policies,
Right?
training in place for guide dogs.
You'd think so, yeah. But the reality is there's so much inconsistency in training,
Yeah.
which just leads to confusion and sometimes even discrimination.
That's a shame that someone like Andrew Lamb, who's dedicated his life to advocating for guide dog users, still faces those kinds of barriers.
It is.
It just shows, how much work still needs to be done.
For sure. It highlights the need for, standardized training and clear communication of policies across the board. Travelers with disabilities shouldn't have to be expert in the regulations just to get on a plane.
I couldn't agree more. So we've talked about the challenges, inconsistencies, need for better training and policies. But is there any good news? Is there anything happening that gives you hope for the future of accessible travel?
Absolutely. The article goes on to explore some really exciting innovations and initiatives that are kind of paving the way for a more inclusive travel experience.
Okay, I'm all ears.
All right, so one example is IncludeCare. It's a global certification scheme that highlights destinations that go above and beyond to be inclusive.
So it's like a seal of approval for travelers with disabilities.
Exactly. It's not just about meeting the bare minimum requirements. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels comfortable and valued. The article mentions a few places that have already received this certification. Amila Maldives, a luxury resort, Great Scotland Yard in London, Leopard Walk Lodge in South Africa, and Hotel Eclat Beijing.
That's fantastic. It's so cool to see this kind of initiative gaining traction globally
Yeah.
in different settings.
For
Luxury resorts, city hotels. It shows that inclusivity isn't just a niche market.
Right.
It's something that more and more travelers are looking for.
Absolutely. And that's where I think market forces can drive change. As more people prioritize accessibility when choosing where to travel, businesses will have a greater incentive to meet those needs.
It makes sense. What about for people who, prefer a more personalized travel experience? Are there any developments in that area?
For sure. The article mentions Inclusive Luxury Travel Designers. It's a company that offers custom-made trips, itineraries, specifically for disabled travelers.
Wow.
It's a great example of how travel agencies are stepping up.
So instead of feeling like an afterthought, people with disabilities are being catered to from the very beginning.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that everyone has different needs and preferences, and travel should be personalized.
Right.
But it's not just about destinations and itineraries. There's some big innovations in transportation, too.
Okay, tell me more about these transportation innovations.
Well, one of the coolest developments mentioned is the Air for All system.
Air for All. I haven't heard of that.
It's a system designed to allow passengers to stay in their own wheelchairs on board planes.
Wait, really? So no more transferring to those tiny aisle chairs?
Exactly. It just cuts out so many challenges and discomforts associated with air travel for wheelchair users. Imagine the feeling of independence and dignity that comes with staying in your own chair for the whole flight.
That would be huge for so many people.
Mm.
But how does it work? And is it safe?
So the article explains that it's basically a special seat that can be used by able-bodied passengers and wheelchair users. It converts into a space for a wheelchair, which is then secured using the ISOFIX system.
ISOFIX. Could you explain that for listeners who might not be familiar?
Yeah, ISOFIX is that standardized system for attaching child safety seats in cars.
Oh,
It's been around for a while. It's got a good safety record.
So they're adapting a system from cars for airplanes.
Exactly.
That's clever. What about wheelchair batteries? Those are a concern on flights, right?
They are. And the people behind Air for All have thought about that. They're working with aviation authorities to make sure the system meets the highest safety standards, especially when it comes to battery containment and fire suppression.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So when can we expect to see this system in action?
They're aiming for FAA approval in the first half of 2025, so it could be really soon.
Wow, that's exciting. It sounds like a major breakthrough for accessible air travel.
It really does.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows the power of innovation and the commitment of people like Chris Wood. He's the founder of Flying Disabled, and he's been a big advocate for this project.
It's pretty inspiring. You know, his own children use wheelchairs, and that's what fuels his passion for making air travel accessible for everyone. So we've covered a lot: challenges, horror stories, advocacy, progress, and these incredible innovations. What do you think the takeaway is for our listeners?
I think the article paints a really complex picture of where we are with travel accessibility. There are definitely still many challenges, but there are also reasons to be hopeful.
Yeah. We're seeing a shift from just reacting to problems to actually designing inclusive travel experiences.
And it's important to remember that accessibility benefits everyone. When we design for inclusivity, we create a better world for all of us.
I love that. It's not just about making travel easier for people with disabilities. It's about creating a travel experience that is truly equitable and enjoyable for everyone.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for our listener?
Well, it's about awareness. Understanding the challenges that people with disabilities face when they travel helps us all become more empathetic and informed travelers.
I totally agree. We can all be part of the solution, even in small ways.
Yeah. Being mindful of accessibility needs, speaking up when we see things that aren't right, supporting businesses that prioritize inclusivity.
And if you are someone who travels with a disability, know that you're not alone. There are resources available, organizations fighting for your rights, a growing movement pushing for change. Don't be afraid to speak up and ask for what you need.
Absolutely. And remember, travel is a right, not a privilege. Everyone deserves to experience the joy and enrichment that travel can bring.
Beautifully said. But before we wrap up, the article leaves us with a thought-provoking question. So it asks, what innovations or policy changes would you like to see to make travel truly inclusive for everyone?
Wow, it's a really good question.
It is.
It really makes you think, it shifts the focus from like the problems to the possibilities.
Yeah.
And it empowers us to imagine a better future for travel.
It's like the article is saying, okay, you've heard the stories, you've seen the challenges, now what are you going to do about it?
Exactly. It's a call to action.
Yeah.
It's an invitation to get involved, think creatively, and, come up with solutions that go beyond just the bare minimum.
Right. So instead of just waiting for someone else to fix it,
Yeah.
we can be part of creating the change
Absolutely.
what we want to see.
Yeah. That's the whole idea, whether it's advocating for better policies, supporting businesses that are inclusive, or just being, more mindful travelers. We all have a part to play.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to this.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a whole new perspective now.
It's one of those topics that once you start learning about it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
And that's good because awareness is what fuels action.
I agree.
Yeah.
So for our listener out there, we encourage you to keep exploring this topic.
Mm.
Check out the resources we mentioned. Connect with organizations that are working to improve travel accessibility. And most importantly, don't be afraid to share your own experiences and ideas.
Your voice matters, your perspective is valuable, and even small actions can help make a difference.
So the next time you're planning a trip, take a moment to consider everyone's needs. Ask yourself, what can I do to make this trip more accessible and enjoyable for everyone?
Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's about realizing that travel is a fundamental human experience. And everyone should have the chance to explore the world without barriers.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing for a more inclusive world.